College is back in session. Time for some tips on the 529 plan. I got that and more coming up. My name is Mike Bernardo, the host of the Wise Money Show. I'm also one of the certified financial planners right here at Korhorn Financial Group. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and smash that thumbs up button. All right, so college is back, and gosh, if you have a student in college, you know just how expensive it is. If you don't yet, but have kids or grandkids that you have a goal of helping them pay for the cost of that education, gosh, is that desperately needed, right? We've got a significant imbalance and big challenges with both the cost of education seems unsustainable and how to fund it. You know, we obviously have this student loan crisis and some failed attempts by the government to manage that risk. And so, gosh, helping to cover if it's a goal of yours, financial goals to help your kids or grandkids with education, oh my goodness, it's needed. Now, our favorite tool for that is the 529 plan. And several reasons for that. It's very flexible, offers some tax benefits as well. And so what are some of the most common tips that we're providing as certified financial planners that we're giving to our clients, that we're telling our clients as we're helping them open 529 plans? Well, before we get into those tips, just how it works, the 529 plan is, it's Section 529 Internal Revenue Code. Essentially what it says at a federal level is that you can contribute, you can open up an account and contribute after-tax dollars into this 529 account. Within that account, then those dollars are invested. You get to choose how you want those, how much risk you want to take with those investments, high risk, low risk, or do you want a target date type plan, basically target a year of enrollment and have it set on autopilot. The activity, that growth and investment activity is all sheltered from taxes. And then when you withdraw the dollars, as long as the dollars are withdrawn for qualified educational expenses, then the dollars come out tax-free. So after tax money in doesn't benefit you on the way in at a federal level. Tax sheltered for while all the activity within the account, and then a tax-free growth on the account if you use it for qualified educational expenses. So that's at a high level. At a federal level, how it works. So what are the most common tips that we're providing to our clients as certified financial planners when we're helping them open a 529 plan, when it makes sense and when they have those goals? All right, so tip number one is make sure as it's time to start withdrawing dollars from the 529 plan, that you're withdrawing dollars from that 529 plan for expenses for the student listed on the account. Okay, so let me explain what that means. It didn't come out quite right. There are three people involved when you're setting up your 529 plan for that 529 plan. You've got the owner of the 529 plan. That's the person that's in control of the account. They can make contributions, they can make withdrawals, they can change the student on the account. They're the ones that list who that is. They have the control over how the money's invested. So that's the owner. Then you have a successor owner. So who has all of those rights and privileges if the owner passes away? And then finally, you have a beneficiary, which normally is that person who has control of the money when the owner passes away. But in this, for 529 plans, that beneficiary is actually the student. So you're setting up this college account for whose benefit? That's the student, that's the beneficiary. Well, you can only have one owner. So if it's a husband and wife, you can't both be the owner, okay? And you can also only have one beneficiary or one child for whose benefit the 529 is for. And so where this gets confused and why we always share this tip or just awareness to make people aware is if you've got multiple kids in college at about the same time, or even if they're sort of back to back, you might still have money in your first child's account, and then all of a sudden you start having expenses for that second child, and you just reach out to your financial planner or go to your 529 directly, and you withdraw dollars out of child number one's account for expenses incurred by child number two. Here's an example. Some folks that I've had the pleasure of serving for a long time, they don't have any kids themselves, and one of their financial goals was, we want to help our niece and nephew with college expenses. Well, niece went right to college and graduated actually early in 3 years, and there was money left over. Well, nephew didn't really go to college and went into the trades and so on, and now is starting to take some classes. And so clients reached out this week and said, okay, well, we're starting to cover, some expenses here. We've been putting them, we've been paying them out of the checking account. Can we get a withdrawal from the 529 plan? I know we still have about $5,000 left in the 529 plan. Can we withdraw those dollars to reimburse ourselves for that expense? Absolutely, you can. However, we first need to change the student, the beneficiary on the account, from niece to nephew, because now you're using that 529 plan for that nephew. Make sense? Therefore, just be aware that you've got to align your expenses with the child listed or the student listed on the account. Second tip with the 529 plan, I mentioned how it works from a federal level. So tip number 2 is make sure you're maximizing the tax benefits that you get at the state level. That's right. Not every state offers a state tax incentive, but you want to be aware of, does your state offer one? And if so, that you maximize that tax benefit that you're getting. Where our headquarters is right on the edge of the border of Indiana and Michigan. Both offer state tax incentives, but very different tax incentives. In Indiana, I would argue, the very best tax incentive for a 529 plan out there of any state. It is a 20% tax credit on your state taxes on the first $7,500 that you contribute into a 529 plan each year. It used to be on the first $5,000, so 20% on $5,000, $1,000 tax credit. That's a significant benefit. That they just increased it for 2023, 20% state tax credit on the first $7,500 that you contribute, so a $1,500 tax credit. In Indiana, that tax benefit is on the contribution. So you might be contributing and also withdrawing dollars, but you get that tax credit on that contribution. You've got to make sure that you're using the Indiana 529 plan, so you can't get that tax benefit if you're using a different state's plan, and you've got to make sure that credit is going towards Indiana state taxes. If you don't pay Indiana state taxes, or you don't pay a lot of Indiana state taxes, then you might not get that full tax benefit. So you need to be aware of that. Conversely, in Michigan, it's not a tax credit, it's a tax deduction. That tax deduction on the first is on the net $10,000 up to $10,000 of contribution. So if you're making a $10,000 contribution into the Michigan 529 plan, you get a deduction of $10,000 on your state tax return. But if you contribute $10,000 to your Michigan 529 plan and you also withdraw $10,000 from your Michigan 529 plan, so think I deposit or I contribute $10,000 for one child, but I withdraw $10,000 for another child, then that's a wash. Your net contribution to the Michigan 529 plan was 0, and your deduction then is 0. So those are just examples of 2 states. Not every state offers a state tax incentive, but for your state, you want to understand those rules and then work with your certified financial planner to do the tax planning necessary to maximize those state tax benefits. And then the final tip for the 529 plan, guys, we give this tip all the time, is make sure that you're using your 529 plan only for qualified educational expenses. You might say, well, no, that's not a tip, that's just a rule. I know, but which education expenses are qualified, which ones are not? We don't have time, we're not gonna go through the full list of what those are, but here's what this is what we explain to clients all the time. That tuition is a qualified expense, so is room and board, but if they're not living in the dorms or have a meal plan, then rent is a qualified college expense up to certain limits, and so are meals as well up to a certain limit. A computer is, even internet service is also a qualified expense. Lab fees, books, those required expenses, those all count. It's you're able to withdraw, so either pay directly from your 529 plan, pay to the school, or withdraw from the 529 plan within that same year that you incur the expense, and either pay the expense or reimburse yourself for the expense for any of those qualified college or educational expenses. So you want to be aware of what all of those potential qualified educational expenses are that you're incurring, and work with your certified financial planner to ensure that you're using your 529 plan to cover each of those or reimburse yourself for each of those, again, within the right time frame, within that calendar year. So that's just a brief overview about how the 529 plan works, and 3 tips that we always offer to our clients as we're helping them get a 529 plan set up and use it effectively for their financial situation. But it certainly isn't an exhaustive list. So work with your CFP, confirm whether you should be funding one, how much you should, discuss all the rules and tips for your situation. Work with your CFP on that. If you don't have a CFP on your team, contact one on my team. You can find us online, wisemoneyshow.com. You can also find us at korhorn.com. That's Korhorn with a K. Or give us a call, 574-247-5898. All right, there you have it. Go out and take your next wise step in your financial life.